All right, welcome to the legendary Vine Rants. Today we've got a very special guest with us, Charles, who just very, very recently, or maybe a couple weeks ago now, had a brand new baby boy with his wife, who I imagine
I
in
like how you with his wife, whoa, that would have been awkward.
who else? Could be anybody really. It's 2020, man. But I imagine in a COVID world where people have most of us have our kids at home, it's got to be madness at your house right now, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a three-ring circus right now. We're very, 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 and I underline very lucky that both my mom and my mother-in-law quarantined since early March. Like we virtually did everything for them so they wouldn't have to leave the house, specifically so they could come in and step in and help out. So we just really have the little one at home right now, and my mom has my son, and my mother-in-law has my daughter, and it's just a revolving door of children. So they come in and out throughout the day, and we've got the backyard with the pool, so they're in and out of there, which was the entire weekend. So again, we're blessed, trust me, because I have friends that are in a very different position where calls like this, all you see is things being thrown in the background, screaming and yelling, and it's just bad.
One kids just shows up and throws something, or one of my kids.
Yeah. Well, it's like day 4,670 of being kind of trapped in our houses, right? So I think people are starting to lose it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we're very lucky, and in so many respects, to be able to do this for a living, which means 99% of our job we can do from home anyway. So it wasn't really a huge shock to the system to kind of move to this digital platform. So really, on aggregate, we're doing pretty well.
Good. So just for some context, Charles moved over to the broker world at the end of last year, I believe it was, for one of the big banks, where he had been for quite a long time, doing very, very well. And I guess my first question is, at what point did you start having the thought of, I should probably explore other options? Like, what was the catalyst that you wanted to do that?
It was a long process, Hugo, I'll be honest. It wasn't a decision that I undertook easily. It was probably about, a good probably 2 years from the time that I really started actually thinking about doing it. I noticed in the bank world, specifically in the summer months, it was just a grind where you're essentially working in a sausage factory. And, it's true, though. I mean, you're not able to cater to clients the way that you want to because your unit demand is just so high. And, it was 1 month, maybe a year and a half ago, it was in August, and it was just a massive volume month. And I think I did like 37 deals in 1 month, and I was just out of my mind. And, the stress was building, there was no release valve, and it affects everything about in your personal life as well. And, my wife could see it, and it was too much. And I said, what am I doing this for? Because the amount of comp that you get in the bank world versus the broker world is night and day. So, we made the decision to start looking around. And I think it took us probably about 6 months from the time that we really decided it was time to go. We literally put an X on the calendar. On this date would be my last day, no matter what. Ironically, we found out we were pregnant with our third kid a week before I resigned. So it was, that was, if that didn't push me back into the hands of the bank, I don't know what would. So this was definitely a make or break moment for us, where it was like, if we don't do it now, we'll never do it. And, when push comes to shove, it's a high wire act no matter what you do in terms of bank or broker. But, for us, it just was a logical transition after a decade of working for the bank.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people we speak to, and a lot of their feedback is, I'm just comfortable here. And the whole uncertainty of the broker world, regardless of all the advantages, is just scares them. But I think you had enough to sort of push you over the edge. Would you say that with COVID, having been at the bank, how do you think you would have done at the bank, just, in terms of work or your ability to service clients or get deals done?
Well, essentially, when you work for a bank, the analogy I use is that I used to work at McDonald's, right? Where I had one menu to choose from, Big Mac combo, cheeseburger combo. I knew the menu very well, but I had one menu to choose from. So by that extension, I could only help so many clients. And given COVID of what has happened, obviously people have gone through some tremendous change in their employment and income. And now I feel, at least for clients that don't necessarily fall into that bank bucket, I have options for them, specifically during this time, because it's tough for everybody. People are losing their jobs. Tough decisions are having to be made. And, when you work for the bank, it's really, you only have one, tool in your tool belt. And, after that, you're kind of out of luck. So now, there's really not a lot that we can't do, which is great because, clients call you in some distress. And, for all the mechanical things we do from underwriting and pricing, our core functions to relieve anxiety. And being in the broker space gives us way more options to choose from, like 60 plus lenders in terms of, who we can help in varying degrees of whatever their decision matrix is.
Yeah, I know you mentioned one of the big things for you, and not everyone has this problem. You were just more successful than others. Is all the units and all the volume you're doing, which didn't really allow you to have a proper conversation. Now, in our world, the compensation could be as high as double or even more for a lot of us. So it allows you to do less deals. But do you find your conversations are just more meaningful and you're able to build a lot better proposals without all the crazy mental stress that comes with servicing like you said, like a sweat factory, basically?
I think, honestly, Hugo, you don't know what you don't know. Right. And, for years and years, I thought what I was doing was normal and the stress that I was under was normal. And now I almost find myself struggling to find things to do to fill my day, which is a very weird, happenstance. Whereas before I didn't have a spare minute. So, since I've made the transition, obviously we're still working hard, just in a different way. And, by extension, it's just a much kind of more relaxed work-life balance. Like I'm not anywhere as stressed as I used to be. I look at the pipeline. I know there's stuff coming in. My phone rings all the time. So, that for me is kind of lets me sleep at night.
It's kind of all that matters to me. I find that work-life balance, at least for me, is hugely important because in our world, your phone can be ringing around the clock on the weekend, in the evenings, and you're dealing with stuff, as it comes. And having a little bit of peace of mind and a little structure, just for me, is like, it's not worth the money, or the hassle otherwise.
Listen, if anything, COVID has taught us, if you don't have your health, you have nothing, right?
Exactly. You realize
what's that?
You realize very quickly what's important, especially with COVID. It's like, who cares about all of this nonsense? I just want my family to be healthy and get out of this at a minimum.
One thing I think a lot of bankers stress about is, the big brand that was behind them is, will my clients follow me? Right? That's what they're probably the most afraid of, because they feel that, the brand did most of the talking for them and they were just there to kind of act as the middleman, which the opposite is true. Like if you separate yourself from everybody else at the bank, your clients will follow you. Right. Yeah. And there's also the misnomer that, in the broker space, you can't do big deals. Some of the biggest deals I've done in my career have been since I've made the transition. So,
I feel like the first ones you did, or I remember discussing with you, whether you had a huge deal on your way into the space at some point at the end of last year, right?
Yep. Yeah. And again, so this was actually a bank employee of all people, right? So this was someone that was dyed in the wool. And because I was able to add value and show him different solutions and, give him some relief to his current situation, it was a very easy discussion. And again, that kind of deal, like in my old role, I can't even tell you what I would have got paid on that because the amount of work that I put in, it just doesn't equate, right? So when I saw the payroll roll through, I had to look at it twice. I'm like, that can't be right. So there's a lot of that in that first couple of months. You're like, that can't be right.
Just double check your payroll.
Yeah. Yeah, like that can't be right. That's way too much money.
I just think, when you can eliminate the brand behind you, you just have so much more freedom, and really the sky's the limit. You're not restricted by all the internal policies that are sort of ongoing in terms of what you can and can't do, how much you can and can't get paid. And, if you have your own brand, which you've created for yourself, and people are coming to you, not the big bank. Yep. It allows you to go any direction you want to and essentially create anything you want to for the most part in our world. What about cons? Let's just be honest. There's obviously not everything is completely rosy. If you were to throw one or two, if you have, of the broker world, what would you say that would be, having come in or maybe not having known that coming into this?
I think, and I think this is true no matter where you go in this industry, in the broker space, it's a bit like drinking from a fire hose at first. Right. Yeah. Because, again, you're used to doing that one thing and one thing only. And then all of a sudden you're confronted with 65 different matrices from 65 different lenders with different structures and different pricing. And the one thing at Vine, which differs from most other brokerages, is that we have the capability through our hub to kind of, mitigate that, issue for most new agents, because they do the grunt work and the heavy lifting for you as you learn. Whereas if you go out to a traditional brokerage, you're kind of out on a desert island. Right, where you kind of just look at I've got 5 lenders that I can use. I've got 2 A's, a couple of B's, and a couple of privates, and that's all you're really concerned with, because you just don't have the time to memorize all these other different options. Whereas at Vine, because of the hub and the way we've structured it, and we have a director of credit that does all this analysis for us, they take all that kind of anxiety away. So I think that was kind of my biggest, I would call it a con, but it really wasn't. it's a con for most brokers coming from the bank because the training and whatnot is just not robust. But in our world, it just made things a lot easier having access to that hub scenario.
What would you say to any existing mortgage specialist at a big bank, or what would you have told yourself 12 months ago, if you could say something to yourself, or any advice you would have told yourself about having made the move? And
I think it's, it's an itch that every specialist has, right? And if it were me again, my wife will tell you the same thing, as I should have done it years ago. And I think, with each passing year, you become more and more kind of intertwined with the bank and more anxious about making that break. And just, because again, you in your mind, you've got it easy, right? Because the deals are flowing, you're getting paid and everything else, but you don't realize what's really going on around you. Right, is you're just a cog in a large machine, and you have very little say over kind of when you work and who you work with, because you don't have a choice, because your volume targets are so aggressive. So for me, I think it would just be kind of like a reassurance that don't worry, it's going to be okay, like you'll be fine, right? Because the math is that if you do 40 or 50 or 60 million at the bank, even if you have that as a broker, which I think is fairly conservative, you're still going to put the same amount in your pocket at the end of the day,
if not more.
if not more.
Yeah. Any closing remarks or anything I missed, or you think I should have highlighted?
I think that this time is challenging, even for veterans like us, in terms of trying to find business. Again, I have a Rolodex of 10 years worth of clients, so my phone always rings and it's never an issue. But I always kind of look at ways to kind of help coach newer agents that are looking to make that transition. And a big part for me, Hugo, is I spend most of my marketing time on LinkedIn. So, I'm not a flyer guy. I don't dial for dollars. I go on LinkedIn and I make connections, and I look for asymmetrical partnerships, in the sense that these are partners that you probably wouldn't think of as an offhand, but end up being very loyal and very, in terms of their capacity to refer businesses, pretty extraordinary. So again, Instagram is great if you want to talk about your puppies and your kids. But if you really want to dig deep and figure out kind of what your business can do, is spend some time every day on LinkedIn and just connect. And eventually you're going to have enough connections where, way our social media works, we push out updates on every couple of days. So it's always on their feed. And the amount of business that I got just from doing that, right, probably accounts for 30% of the business since I've left.
Oh, wow. I 1,000% agree with LinkedIn. I think Facebook and Instagram are overutilized. And I read a stat that with LinkedIn, they've got the highest conversions on any opportunities
well, because there's no false pretension. There's no false pretension, right? Like Instagram, I can pretend to think your kid is cute, right? But on LinkedIn, people are there. It's a professional business network. It's in its very iteration that they encourage people that are on that network to socialize and to network and work together. And I'm telling you, you get the BS out of the way really quick, because if you connect with someone, you're not connecting with them to find out about what they like to eat, right? You're connecting because you want to do business with them, so they know.
No, I just find it's a lot more efficient. All right, dude. I think that's all I have, man. I know you're probably in some swim shorts, or you're dying to hop into the pool.
I cannot confirm nor deny. I cannot confirm.
I appreciate you taking some time, brother. And yeah, well, I look forward to having many drinks and Negronis with you as soon as we can finally connect with the little ones as well, man.
Done deal. Thanks, Hugo. Okay, brother. Ciao.